In the serene abode of the Borden family, nestled amidst the bustling streets of Fall River, the day commenced as any other. Sunlight streamed through the lace curtains, casting patterns of light and shadow across the polished floors and well-appointed furnishings. It was a household that, to any onlooker, epitomized the very essence of tranquility and order. Within these walls moved Bridget Sullivan, the family's maid, her form a silent specter amidst the corridors of opulence. With a diligence born of necessity, she attended to her chores, her hands moving with the practiced ease of one well accustomed to the demands of her station. Yet, beneath the veneer of her calm exterior, a tempest brewed, a maelstrom of memories and fears she dared not unveil. Bridget hailed from the Emerald Isles of Ireland, a land she had fled not merely in pursuit of a brighter future, but to escape the clutches of a past darkened by secrets she could scarcely bear to recall. In her heart she harbored tales of woe and misdeeds that, if brought to light, could very well spell her ruin. It was a past that clung to her like the shadows at dusk, relentless and unyielding. As she moved about her tasks, the silence of the house seemed to press upon her, a weight that made her every movement feel as though she were wading through a sea of treacle. The solitude of her position afforded her much time for reflection, and it was during these moments that the specters of her past rose to torment her. The arrival of a post, nondescript and unassuming, marked the turning point in Bridget's day. It was with trembling hands that she broke the seal, her eyes scanning the contents with a growing sense of dread. The letter, penned by an anonymous scribe, bore words that chilled her to the bone, for within its lines lay the threat of exposure. "Your secrets are not your own," it read, a simple sentence that bore the weight of 1,000 accusations. "What lies buried in the heart of Ireland shall not remain hidden. Heed my words, Bridget Sullivan, for your past is a spectre that refuses to be laid to rest." The letter slipped from her grasp, fluttering to the floor like a leaf borne upon an autumn breeze. Panic, swift and unrelenting, seized her then, a vice that tightened around her heart with ruthless efficiency. The tranquility of the Borden household, once her refuge, now seemed a gilded cage, its bars forged from the very secrets she sought to escape. In the shadows of the past, Bridget Sullivan stood alone, a woman haunted by memories she could neither confront nor flee. The journey ahead promised naught but torment, a path shrouded in mystery and malice that she must navigate with care, lest the ghosts of her past consume her whole. As the morning waned, Bridget Sullivan found herself amidst the daily rhythm of her chores. The silence of the Borden residence punctuated only by the soft swish of her broom and the occasional chirp from the garden birds. It was within this semblance of normalcy that an insidious element crept, an intrusion that would shatter the maid's facade of stoicism. Upon the polished mahogany of the foyer's table lay an envelope, nondescript and unassuming. Bridget, with hands still damp from her duties, hesitated but a moment before her curiosity drew her fingers to break the seal. The contents of the letter, penned in a hand both meticulous and unrecognizable, bore no salutation of friendship. Instead, the words within spoke of shadows and secrets, of a past left across the sea in Ireland that Bridget had hoped was buried deep enough to never see the light of day. "Dear Miss Sullivan," it began, a polite veneer masking the venom of the words that followed. "It has come to my attention that there are chapters of your life in Ireland you've endeavored to keep cloistered from the world. How tragic it would be if the light were cast upon those darkened pages. The letter, unsigned, concluded with a demand veiled as a suggestion, instructing Bridget to leave the doors of the Borden home unlocked upon a specified night, failing which, the promise of revealing her hidden past to the scrutinizing eyes of Fall River society loomed large. With each subsequent day, more letters found their way into Bridget's trembling hands, each echoing the threats of the last, yet with an intensity that crescendoed into a cacophony of fear. The words, once merely unsettling, now whispered threats of a dire nature, painting vivid the consequences of her non-compliance. Tormented by the specter of her past and the looming threat to her present, Bridget found herself ensnared in a web of blackmail. The tranquility of the Borden household, once a refuge, now felt as constricting as a noose. Yet the option to confide in the Bordens seemed a chalice as poisonous as the letters themselves, leaving Bridget to wrestle with her dilemma in isolation, her soul shadowed by the unseen menace that now held sway over her fate. As the ominous night drew near, the weight of decision pressed heavily upon Bridget Sullivan's shoulders, each tick of the grandfather clock a reminder of the inexorable march towards a moment that would decide not just her fate, but unknowingly, the fate of the entire Borden household. As the days wore on, a shift in the atmosphere of the Borden residence became evident to all within its walls. Bridget Sullivan, once the embodiment of diligence and composure, now seemed a shell of her former self. Her movements through the grand corridors were fraught with a nervous energy, her tasks attended to with a mind seemingly ensnared by distant worries. It was a transformation that did not escape the keen observation of the Borden sisters, Lizzie and Emma. Lizzie, with her keen eye and sharp wit, whispered her concerns to Emma under the veil of night. "Something ails Bridget," she murmured, her voice a mere echo in the shadowed chamber they shared. Her countenance is marred by anxiety, and her gaze darts about as though pursued by some unseen specter. Emma, ever the more cautious of the two, nodded in agreement, her brow furrowed in contemplation. "Indeed, sister, but let us not forget, shadows of our own making follow closely behind. We must tread carefully, for the walls, though silent, bear witness to the secrets of all who dwell within." The sisters, bound by blood and burdened by secrets of their own, cast wary glances towards Bridget in the days that followed. Their interactions with the maid, once marked by a straightforward simplicity, now took on a measured quality, each word weighed and each glance laden with unspoken questions. Yet, as the air grew thick with suspicion, Bridget's distress only deepened. The letters, their contents a vile reminder of her past transgressions, continued to arrive with chilling regularity. Each envelope, unmarked and sinister in its anonymity, bore threats that grew increasingly dire, hinting at consequences too dreadful for Bridget's tormented mind to bear. In this house of secrets, where the past lingered like a persistent fog, the uneasy dance of mistrust and fear played out beneath the watchful eyes of the Borden sisters. Their own behaviors, once unremarkable, now seemed tinged with a sinister hue, adding layers of intrigue and suspicion to the already muddled affair. As Bridget grappled with her invisible tormentor, and the sisters with their own hidden demons, the Borden household stood on the edge of a revelation that threatened to shatter the fragile veneer of propriety and expose the darkness that lay beneath. The shadows of the past, long and deep, stretched forth their fingers, ensnaring all in a web of deceit and dread. In this tale of whispers and wary glances, where the boundary between victim and villain blurred, the truth remained shrouded in mystery, awaiting the moment of its chilling unveiling. Tension within the household mounts as Bridget attempts to navigate her predicament. She is seen leaving the doors unlocked late at night, a detail that does not go unnoticed by Emma, who confronts her, only to be met with evasive answers. In the dead of night, under the watchful gaze of a pallid moon, the Borden household lay shrouded in silence, a silence so profound it seemed as though the very house itself held its breath. Within these walls, where shadows danced with the flickering light, Emma Borden found herself restless, a disquiet in her heart that sleep could not ease. Moved by an unseen force, she rose from her bed and ventured forth into the dim corridors, drawn towards the back of the house. Her eyes, adjusting to the scant light, caught sight of the door, slightly ajar. A breach in the sanctity of their home, an invitation to the unknown. A chill ran down her spine, not from the night air that pushed its way through the open door, but from the realization of what this oversight implied. The door, a guardian against the night and its untold mysteries, stood compromised, unsecured. In a household as disciplined as the Bordens, such carelessness was more than an oversight. It was a silent scream in the quiet of the night. Emma's mind raced with possibilities. Bridget, the family's maid, entrusted with the care of the house, flashed into her thoughts. Could it have been her hand that left the door unlatched? The thought lingered, heavy with unspoken questions. Emma knew the weight of responsibility Bridget bore, and the thought of her failing in such a basic duty was troubling. Yet, Emma held back from casting outright suspicion or weaving accusations from the shadows. The night, with all its mysteries, was a tapestry too complex for simple explanations. Instead, Emma closed the door, securing the lock with a quiet click that seemed to echo through the silent house. The act felt significant, a sealing away of the night and its unsettling revelations. She made a mental note to mention the incident to Bridget, a reminder rather than an accusation. The importance of vigilance, especially in the dark hours, was a lesson learned under the moon's watchful eye. With the door now secured, Emma retreated back to the sanctuary of her room, the disquiet in her heart a silent companion. Amid the genteel trappings of the Borden household, where Victorian decorum masked the simmering tensions beneath, the daily rhythms of life proceeded with an outward appearance of normalcy. However, beneath this facade, the undercurrents of familial discord began to subtly shift, heralding the onset of a silent storm that would soon engulf all within. As autumn's chill encroached upon the waning days of summer, Lizzie Borden's behavior began to exhibit disconcerting changes. Once a paragon of filial piety and restraint, her interactions with Bridget Sullivan, the family's loyal maid, grew increasingly sharp and imperious. Simple requests were now tinged with an edge of impatience, and the easy camaraderie that had once defined their relationship gave way to an unspoken tension to all who witnessed their exchanges. Abby Borden, too, found herself the target of Lizzie's mounting irritability. The stepmother and daughter, never particularly close, now moved around each other like celestial bodies, destined never to align. Their conversations, once merely perfunctory, were now laced with a coldness that left Abby bewildered and concerned. She confided in Emma, her elder stepdaughter, seeking solace and understanding, but found little comfort in her guarded responses. Emma, for her part, navigated the growing fissures within the family with a quiet watchfulness. To the casual observer, she remained the picture of a dutiful daughter and protective elder sister. Yet, beneath this calm exterior, a keen mind worked to piece together the reasons behind Lizzie's sudden change. Emma's own demeanor took on a calculated quality, her movements and inquiries subtle but deliberate, as if seeking to uncover a hidden truth lurking beneath the surface of their domestic life. Whispers of conversation between the Borden sisters, overheard in the dimming light of evening, hinted at unresolved grievances and a desire for a change that seemed increasingly out of reach. These murmurs of discontent, though vague, began to sow seeds of suspicion and unease among the household's inhabitants, each member keenly aware of the shifting dynamics but uncertain of their cause or culmination. It was within this atmosphere of brewing storm clouds that Bridget Sullivan found herself an unwitting participant in the family's silent drama. Her observations, though kept to herself, painted a picture of a household on the brink, where the veneer of respectability and order thinly veiled an undercurrent of discontent and longing for escape. Beneath the cloak of night, Bridget Sullivan, her countenance etched with lines of worry and fear, hastened through the labyrinthine alleyways that crisscrossed behind the Borden residence. The moon, a mere sliver in the velvet sky, offered scant illumination, casting long, sinister shadows that seemed to dance mockingly around her. Her destination was a secluded spot, far from the prying eyes of the town's slumbering inhabitants, where she was to rendezvous with the architect of her current misery, the enigmatic blackmailer. As she neared the appointed place, her steps grew hesitant, her heart pounding against her ribcage with the ferocity of a caged bird. The night air, thick with the anticipation of an impending storm, carried to her the faint sound of footsteps. She paused, her breath held in suspense, as the figure of the blackmailer emerged from the shadows, a mere silhouette against the darkness. The exchange that followed was fraught with tension. The figure dictated the terms of her final act of compliance. She was to ensure the vulnerability of the Borden household on the day that would forever be marked by horror and bloodshed. The specifics of the deed were left unspoken, yet the implication hung between them like a guillotine's blade, ready to sever the last threads of Bridget's hope. As the meeting concluded, Bridget found herself alone once more, the blackmailer melting away into the night, as if they were naught but a figment of the darkness itself. She stood for a moment, lost in the enormity of her predicament, before retracing her steps back to the house that no longer felt like a sanctuary, but a prison. The web of deceit had tightened around her, a noose from which there seemed no escape. As she slipped silently through the back door, the weight of her impending betrayal bore down upon her. As dawn broke on that fateful morning, a sinister pall seemed to hang over the Borden household, a prelude to the macabre events that were soon to unfold. The first light of day did little to dispel the shadows that had entrenched themselves within the home, shadows that hinted at the dark deeds poised to shatter the veneer of normalcy that had, until now, cloaked the family's turbulent undercurrents. Bridget Sullivan, her countenance a mask of resignation, moved through her morning chores with a somber, mechanical efficiency. The routine tasks, once performed with a measure of pride and diligence, now seemed to her as hollow gestures, meaningless in the face of the impending doom that only she knew loomed over the household. Each sweep of the broom, each setting of the table, felt to her like the final preparations for a morbid feast, the guests of honor being death and betrayal. Lizzie and Emma Borden, meanwhile, observed Bridget's every move with a scrutiny that belied their casual, disinterested facades. The sisters themselves communicated in hushed tones, their words laden with innuendo and the weight of a dark, unspoken agreement. To the outside observer, they might have appeared merely as two women confiding in each other, united in sisterly solidarity. Yet, beneath the surface of their whispered exchanges lay a morass of complicity and conspiracy. Their conversation a coded dance around the truth of their intentions and desires. The veil of normalcy that had once shrouded their lives was about to be lifted, revealing the void of human depravity and the chilling reality that within the walls of a seemingly ordinary home, evil could take root and flourish, unseen and unsuspected until it was far too late. In the hushed hours of that ill-fated morning, as the household lay ensconced in a deceptive calm, the specter of death crept through the Borden residence with a silent, malevolent grace. The dawn, which should have heralded a day of mundane toil and familial interactions, instead became the backdrop for a horror so profound, so chilling in its execution, that it would sear itself into the annals of infamy. The air, heavy with the anticipation of the storm to come, became charged with dread. It was within this oppressive atmosphere that the deed was done, a series of acts so ghastly, so meticulously carried out, that they bespoke a mind consumed by darkness. The victims, Andrew and Abby Borden, found themselves at the mercy of an unseen assailant, their last moments a tableau of terror and confusion as the sharp edge of an axe cleaved through the stillness of their home, leaving behind a silence more profound than any that had preceded it. Andrew, discovered in the repose of what appeared to be a routine rest on the sitting-room couch, bore the brutal marks of betrayal, a countenance forever marred by the violence that had claimed him. Abby, her body found in the guest chamber, had been struck with such ferocity that the very essence of her being seemed erased, her final posture a grotesque mimicry of rest. The household, plunged into chaos in the wake of the murders, became a scene of frenzied activity. Bridget Sullivan, the family's maid, emerged as a figure of paradoxical composure. Distraught yet oddly resigned, her behavior in the aftermath became a focal point of suspicion, her actions scrutinized, her past interrogated. Yet, amidst the whirlwind of accusation and conjecture, the veil of mystery only thickened. Lizzie and Emma Borden, too, found themselves ensnared in the web of suspicion that enveloped the house. The investigators, diligent in their pursuit of truth, could not ignore the sinister undercurrents that seemed to pervade the sisters' alibis. Each statement, each recollection, when held against the light of scrutiny, revealed fissures, cracks that hinted at hidden depths, at secrets unspoken and motives obscured. As the investigation deepened, the horror of the murders, executed with a chilling precision that belied a deep-seated animus, cast a shadow over the Borden name. The family, once ensconced in the relative obscurity of provincial life, found themselves the nucleus of a mystery that would captivate and horrify a nation. In this maelstrom of suspicion, grief, and horror, the true nature of the events of that day remained shrouded in ambiguity. The veil had been lifted, not to reveal answers, but to expose the depths to which the human soul could descend, driven by motives as dark and complex as the human heart itself. The Borden household, forever marked by the tragedy, stood as a grim testament to the mysteries that lurk in the shadows of ordinary life, waiting for the moment to emerge into the stark light of day. As the investigation into the ghastly murders within the Borden household deepened, the air became thick with accusations and whispers of deceit. Bridget Sullivan, the family's maid, found herself ensnared in a web of suspicion and fear, her every action scrutinized, her past brought into question. Torn betwixt the desire to unburden herself of the weighty secret of her blackmailer and the dread of her own dark history being dragged into the unforgiving light of public scrutiny, she was a soul divided. Her countenance, once open and untroubled, now bore the marks of internal conflict as she wrestled with the damning choice before her. Amidst this tumult, Lizzie and Emma Borden, daughters of the slain, assumed a role most nefarious. With cunning and calculation, they fanned the flames of suspicion towards Bridget, weaving a tapestry of doubt and innuendo around her. Their words, laced with feigned concern and veiled accusation, sought to direct the gaze of the law further upon Bridget, suggesting her complicity in the vile acts that had bereft them of their parents. They painted her as a figure of questionable character, insinuating motives rooted in greed or revenge, thus casting a shadow of guilt upon her. These insinuations served a dual purpose, not only maligning Bridget, but also serving to deflect scrutiny from themselves. As the sisters moved through the corridors of their home, now a place of mourning and suspicion, they did so with an air of innocence carefully constructed, their true emotions cloaked behind a facade of genteel mourning. Their every word and deed were measured, calculated to preserve their place above reproach, even as the specter of guilt loomed ever larger in the public eye. The investigation, thus influenced, found itself mired in a morass of conflicting testimonies and circumstantial evidence, the truth obscured by layers of deceit and manipulation. Bridget, caught in the crossfire of accusation and her own fears, became a figure of tragic isolation, her plight a testament to the destructive power of secrets kept and secrets told. In this atmosphere of suspicion and intrigue, the Borden household stood as a dark emblem of the human capacity for duplicity and the lengths to which individuals will go to protect their own secrets, even at the expense of justice for the dead. The veil had been lifted, not to reveal the truth, but to expose the myriad ways in which fear, suspicion, and self-preservation can warp the fabric of a community, leaving only shadows and whispers in their wake. The true architect of the dark design that led to the demise of Andrew and Abby Borden remains cloaked in shadow, an enigma, their identity shrouded in the dense fog of suspicion that permeates every corner of the household. Whispers of a sinister figure manipulating events from behind the scenes have circulated, yet this specter eludes capture, their motives as inscrutable as their identity. Could this phantom menace be one of the Borden sisters, driven by dark desires unknown, or perhaps another soul, tormented by grievances buried deep within the annals of the family's history? The air is thick with theories and conjecture, but the truth remains just beyond reach, a puzzle missing its crucial piece. Bridget Sullivan, the family's loyal servant, finds herself entangled in this web of deceit, her role more that of a pawn than a perpetrator. Coerced into actions that left the house vulnerable on that fateful day, her involvement speaks to manipulation by a master unseen, wielding secrets like a blade to bend wills to their own sinister ends. As the investigation unfolds, each member of the household comes under scrutiny, their motives dissected, their alibis questioned. The sisters, Lizzie and Emma, find themselves ensnared in a lattice of suspicion, their every look and utterance analyzed for signs of guilt. Yet the elusive figure who set this grim tragedy in motion remains just out of grasp, a ghost haunting the edges of perception. In the final act of our macabre narrative, the curtain falls on a scene not of resolution, but of perpetual enigma. The Borden sisters, Lizzie and Emma, emerge from the shadow of accusation, their names cleared by the court for want of tangible evidence. Yet they remain ensnared in a web of public suspicion and historical infamy. The specter of guilt hovers about them like a pall, their acquittal in the eyes of the law doing little to dispel the dark clouds of doubt cast by the court of public opinion. Bridget Sullivan, the family's maid, whose life became entwined in the tragedy through no choice of her own, finds herself standing at a crossroads, her spirit wearied by the ordeal. Though cleared of direct involvement, the ordeal has left indelible scars upon her soul, compelling her to seek solace far from the town that had become a prison of whispers and sidelong glances. With heavy heart, she departs from Fall River, the name Borden now a shackle from which she longs to free herself. As for Lizzie, history has not been kind. Despite the jury's verdict, she remains in many a whisper and a wary glance, the alleged architect of a horror that has etched itself into the annals of American crime. The shadow of suspicion that clings to her is as indelible as the bloodstains that once marred the floorboards of the Borden home. She lives out her days under the heavy cloak of scrutiny, her every move watched by eyes both near and far, her name forever linked to an atrocity that whispers of unspeakable depths of human depravity. The final scene leaves our audience adrift in a sea of questions, the true extent of each character's involvement obscured by layers of deceit, manipulation, and perhaps a conspiracy far more intricate than the evidence ever suggested. The narrative weaves a complex tapestry of human emotions and motivations, suggesting that the line between victim and villain may be as thin as the blade that severed the bonds of familial love. Thus, our story concludes, not with the clarity of truth, but with the haunting specter of uncertainty. The Borden house stands as a silent witness to the events that unfolded within its walls, its secrets locked within the silent testimonies of those who lived and died by its hearth. And as the pages of history turn, the tale of the Borden murders remains a chilling reminder of the mysteries that can lie hidden in the human heart, a dark puzzle whose pieces may never fully be placed. As dusk descends upon the Borden house, now cloaked in infamy, its darkened silhouette stands as a silent testament to a tale that has woven itself into the very fabric of American lore. The true motives and deeds of that fateful day remain enshrouded in the mists of time, an enduring mystery that speaks to the sinister allure of greed, the specter of blackmail, and the relentless pursuit of liberty at any cost. This house, forever etched in the annals of crime, serves as a chilling reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink in its darkest moments. We thank you for venturing with us into the shadows on this episode of Friday Night Frights on the YouTube channel, It Gets Creepy. Your journey with us into the heart of darkness does not go unappreciated. And now, a word from our spectral guardian, Night Angel. To all who dare to delve into the mysteries that lurk in the night, lend us your ears and your curiosity. Like, subscribe, and engage with us in the comments below. Your theories, your fears, and your insights breathe life into our tales. And do not let the chime of the notification bell go unheeded, for it heralds the arrival of new terrors, new mysteries, to challenge the mind and chill the soul. Until next time, keep the lights dimmed, your senses sharp, and always be wary of what lurks in the shadows. Good night, and let not the dark whispers of the night disturb your rest.